A man is lying face down on the marble floor of a bank. His hands are tied behind his back. His cheek is pressed against the cold stone. Every few seconds he hears boots moving behind him. He doesn't turn his head. He doesn't dare. A gun is pointed at the back of his skull. He can feel it shaking slightly. Not because the man holding it is nervous, but because helicopters are rattling the entire building. Outside, police cars block every street. Sirens echo through the neighborhood. Armed officers kneel behind doors and concrete barriers. Snipers lie flat on rooftops, fingers resting on triggers, watching every window. Negotiators stand behind vans, shouting into radios, trying to slow things down before someone makes a mistake. Inside the bank, 23 people are being held hostage, and none of them are in real danger. What the hostages don't know is that the gun against their heads is fake. What the police don't know is much worse. While every officer in Buenos Aires is focused on the front door of this bank, 3 men are already inside the vault. They didn't force their way in. They came up from a tunnel they dug below the bank. And the 3 men upstairs are just decoys. This is the story of the bank heist that made Argentina's police look foolish. This is January 13th, 2006. Banco Rio, Acasuso. From the outside, it looks like a hostage crisis that's about to turn deadly. From the inside, it looks like chaos barely being held together. But the truth is simpler. Everything you can see is a distraction. Every scream, every demand, every threat is designed to point attention in the wrong direction. Because the real crime isn't happening where anyone is looking. Under the bank, in complete darkness, 3 men stand knee-deep in sewage. The smell is overwhelming. One of them is swinging a heavy tool into concrete, slowly, carefully, pausing every few seconds to listen. Each strike sends a dull vibration through the ground. If someone upstairs hears it, everything ends. But no one hears anything. Above them, customers and employees lie still on the floor, convinced they're watching the final moments of their lives. Police argue about tactics and timing, cameras roll, commentators speculate, the country watches live, and beneath all of it, steel doors are being opened that were never meant to open this way. To understand how this was possible, you need to go back 5 years, back to the moment Argentina lost trust in its banks. In 2001, the country collapsed. The government froze accounts overnight. People woke up and couldn't access their own money. Life savings vanished. Retirement funds disappeared. Families who had done everything right were suddenly ruined. There was no warning and no apology. Banks weren't seen as institutions anymore. They were seen as thieves. The wealthy reacted first. They stopped keeping money in accounts. They pulled everything out and hid it. Not under mattresses, not in walls, in safe deposit boxes. Cash, gold, jewelry, bearer bonds, things with no names attached to them. Banks became storage units for quiet fortunes. Banco Rio, in the wealthy suburb of Acasuso, became one of the most valuable of them all. Safe deposit boxes there cost 3 times the city average. Not because the bank was special, but because the people using it were. If someone broke into those boxes, no one could prove what was missing without admitting they had hidden assets. That loophole would become the foundation of everything. The man who noticed it wasn't a criminal. His name was Fernando Araujo. He was an artist, a writer, someone who spent more time thinking than acting. In 2003, he became obsessed with an old news story, a failed bank siege from 1999. Police had stormed a bank. 2 hostages were killed live on television. Everyone else saw a tragedy. Araujo saw a pattern. Every robbery ended the same way, violence or surrender. The police expected force. The criminals expected confrontation. No one questioned the structure itself. Araujo kept asking a different question. What if the robbery didn't end inside the bank? What if it ended somewhere else entirely? What if you never had to leave through the front door? That idea stayed with him. He didn't talk about it much. He thought about it quietly. Then he called someone who could tell him whether it was insane or possible. Sebastian Garcia Bolster fixed motorcycles in a small garage outside Buenos Aires. He built things with his hands. He solved problems that other people gave up on. His family had lost everything in the banking collapse. He didn't trust banks. He didn't trust systems. He trusted measurements. When Araujo told him the idea, Bolster didn't react emotionally. He didn't laugh. He didn't get excited. He asked one thing. What's under the bank? Storm drains, old tunnels, infrastructure no one cared about anymore. Bolster asked for maps, blueprints, elevation data. He traced the lines with his finger. The vault extended into the basement. Beneath it, 2 feet of reinforced concrete. Hard, but not impossible. Bolster said it could be done. but it would take time and no mistakes. That's when the idea stopped being a thought experiment and became a plan. Two teams. One team would walk through the front door of the bank in broad daylight. They would take hostages. They would look dangerous. They would talk to police. They would make demands. They would keep everyone focused on them. The other team would enter through the tunnels and break into the vault from below. The men upstairs wouldn't steal anything. Their job wasn't money. Their job was attention. They needed time. Exactly 2 hours. 1 second too short and the men underground would be trapped. 1 second too long and police would search the basement. There was no margin. The hardest part wasn't the tunnel. It was finding the right people. You couldn't use amateurs. You couldn't use men who panic. You needed people who understood police behavior, who knew how hostages react, who could scare people without hurting them. That meant experienced criminals, men who had done this before. Araujo approached Ruben Beto de la Torre, a veteran bank robber from the 1980s. Beto had been part of the Superband gang. He had robbed banks, escaped police, and survived prison. When Araujo explained the plan, Beto didn't interrupt. He asked how much money, how many guns, how many men. When Araujo said there would be no real guns, Beto paused. Then he agreed. He brought in Luis Mario Vitete, known as El Uruguayo, former military, calm, controlled. He knew how to project authority without violence. He had held hostages before without firing a shot. Vitete studied the plan and began changing it. He adjusted the dialogue, the pacing, the behavior. Fake guns needed weight. Threats needed consistency. Hostages needed fear, but not trauma. Everything was rehearsed. Meanwhile, Bolster went underground. Night after night, he entered the storm drains alone, wearing a wetsuit, carrying tools, walking through sewage in total darkness. He measured distances, marked locations, checked airflow, monitored gas levels. One mistake meant death. He worked in short bursts, 10 seconds at a time, listening after every strike. If someone heard him above, it was over. Rain flooded the tunnels. Methane nearly killed him. Once, he encountered a homeless man living underground. Bolster froze. The man ran. Bolster waited days to see if anything appeared in the news. Nothing did. Above ground, the team watched the bank. They learned employee habits, shift changes, smoke breaks, camera blind spots. They chose Friday afternoons, when vault traffic was high and attention was low. By the end of 2005, the tunnel was ready. Bolster broke through the final layer of concrete and saw the vault floor above him. He sealed the hole so it would look untouched. On the day of the robbery, it could be opened in seconds. The date was set, January 13th, 2006. Hot weather, clear skies, a normal business day. On that morning, 6 men woke up knowing that by nightfall, they would either be legends or prisoners, and no one inside the bank would ever understand what was really happening beneath their feet. The last rehearsal ends without anyone speaking. They sit in silence inside an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. The same positions, the same timing. 2 hours and 7 minutes, start to finish. Every word spoken out loud, every movement counted. When it's over, no one claps, no one jokes. They all understand something now that they didn't when this started. This is real. Fernando Araujo looks around the room and studies their faces. These aren't reckless men. They aren't adrenaline junkies. They're focused, serious, the kind of people who don't panic when things go wrong. That's what makes them dangerous. Araujo hands out the final items: masks, gloves, fake pistols weighted with lead so they feel real in the hand. If a hostage touches one, it has to convince them instantly. If a police sniper sees one through glass, it has to look right. Sebastian Bolster hands out coveralls for the tunnel team. Thick fabric, waterproof. They smell faintly of oil and concrete dust. Everything has been tested. Every piece of equipment has a backup. They synchronize their watches. 2 hours and 7 minutes. That number hangs over everything. If something goes wrong upstairs, the men underground die. If something goes wrong underground, the men upstairs are trapped inside a bank surrounded by police with fake guns. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows. There is no safe failure. 2 days later, on the morning of January 13th, 2006, Buenos Aires wakes up to a normal Friday. Traffic, heat, office workers. Nothing feels unusual. Banco Rio opens its doors like it always does. Inside, employees start their routines. Computers on, cash drawers opened, customers come and go. Some are there to deposit checks. Others are there for their safe deposit boxes before the weekend. None of them notice anything strange. At 12:28 p.m., Sebastian Bolster disappears into a storm drain 3 blocks away. He lowers himself down slowly, careful not to scrape metal against concrete. The smell hits immediately. Sewage, rot, stagnant water. He clicks on his headlamp and checks his tools. Behind him, 2 others follow. Alberto, known as Doc, and Beto de la Torre. They wade forward in silence. They reach the spot beneath the bank. Bolster kneels and strikes the cement seal he placed weeks earlier. 1 hit. 2. The plug breaks cleanly. He pulls it away. Above them is the vault. They climb through the opening one by one. At 12:31 p.m., 3 men walk through the front door of Banco Rio. They're dressed like businessmen, calm, normal. Luis Vitet steps forward and asks the woman at the desk about opening an account. His voice is steady, polite. The security guard looks away for a second. That's all it takes. Vitet pulls the gun. Everyone stay where you are. His voice doesn't shake. He doesn't shout. He doesn't rush. It's firm, certain. People freeze. Fernando Araujo locks the front door. Doc moves quickly, directing customers and employees away from windows. There's no screaming yet, no chaos, just confusion. People trying to understand whether this is real. Then Vitet speaks again. This is a robbery. Stay calm and no one gets hurt. That sentence does the work. Within 90 seconds, the bank is under control. Customers are forced to the floor. Employees are separated. The manager is brought forward. Everyone can see the guns. Everyone believes they're real. At 12:45 p.m., someone outside calls the police. At 12:52 p.m., the first patrol cars arrive. At 1:15 p.m., the bank is surrounded. Inside, Vitet calls the police himself. He sounds reasonable, controlled, almost friendly. We don't want problems. We don't want anyone hurt. We just need time. The negotiators hear this and relax slightly. They've dealt with worse. This doesn't sound like someone ready to kill. Vitet releases one hostage early, a teller. She walks out crying and shaking. She tells police the robbers are nervous, but not violent. That's exactly what Vitet wants them to think. While police focus on the voices upstairs, the vault is being destroyed below. Bolster moves fast. The pneumatic tool tears into safe deposit boxes like paper, one after another. No hesitation, no sentiment. Cash spills out. Gold coins scatter across the floor. Jewelry clinks against concrete. They work in a pattern. Left wall, back wall, right wall. Some boxes contain personal items. Photos, letters, ashes. They leave those behind. Others are heavy with currency. Dollars, euros, mixed bills, bearer bonds folded tight. They load everything into waterproof duffel bags. Above them, the tech keeps talking. He demands food. Pizza. The negotiator thinks he misheard. Pizza? Yes, Vitet says. Pizza. The request moves up the chain of command. Officers laugh. Commanders laugh. This doesn't sound like a hardened criminal. This sounds like an amateur trying to buy time. They approve it. At 3:05 p.m., pizza is delivered under police escort. The smell fills the bank. Hostages eat. Some cry while chewing. Others stare at the floor. It's surreal, absurd. It lowers everyone's guard. Police psychologists interpret it as progress. They don't realize the clock is almost out. At 3:27 p.m., Bolster checks his watch. The duffel bags are full, approximately $19 million. He tapes a message to the vault wall. Without weapons or grudges, it's just money, not love. They climb back through the hole, seal nothing, leave everything as it is. They load the bags onto an inflatable raft and begin moving through the tunnels. 3 blocks away, Julio Chavarria waits at a manhole with the engine running. He's been sitting there for hours, pretending to fix something. No one notices him. At 3:33 p.m., the first man emerges, then the second, then the third. They load the bags into the van. The van pulls away. At the same moment, Vitet calls police again. We're coming out in 5 minutes. Then he hangs up. Inside the bank, the robbers lead the hostages into a basement room. They tell them to stay there for 10 minutes. They lock the door. They place the fake guns neatly on the floor. Then, they disappear. At 7:45 p.m., 4 hours later, police storm the bank. Flashbangs explode. Officers sweep every room. They find hostages alive, shaken, unharmed. They find toy guns. They find pizza boxes. They find nothing else. When detectives enter the vault, they understand immediately. The safe deposit boxes hang open. The floor is scattered with velvet, paper, empty shells of wealth. Then they see the hole, a perfect opening into darkness. The robbers are gone, and no one has any idea how long they've been gone for. The city doesn't realize it yet, but by the time night falls, Buenos Aires has already lost. News spreads fast, but confusion spreads faster. Early reports say the robbers escaped through the sewers. Others say they vanished into thin air. Some outlets claim hostages were held for hours at gunpoint. Others say it was a quiet, almost polite robbery. No one agrees on what actually happened, and that uncertainty makes it worse. By midnight, the phrase starts circulating everywhere: the perfect robbery. Police commanders stand in front of cameras and try to sound in control, but their words don't match their faces. They talk about ongoing investigations, about perimeters and leads. They promise arrests. Behind them, officers comb through sewer tunnels that are already hours cold. Inside the bank, forensic teams work through the night. They photograph everything: the fake guns, the pizza boxes, the message left in the vault, the whole cut with professional precision. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels sloppy. That's what scares them. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't luck. This was planning. By morning, the story explodes nationwide. Newspapers run front-page headlines. Morning shows replay security footage on loop. Commentators laugh, then stop laughing when they realize how bad it looks. A gang walked into a major bank in broad daylight, took dozens of hostages, emptied hundreds of safe deposit boxes, escaped under the feet of police, and not a single person was hurt. The public reaction is strange. People aren't angry, they're impressed. Radio hosts joke about it. Taxi drivers debate it. Someone prints t-shirts within 48 hours. The robbers become folk legends almost instantly. Online forums nickname them the Gentlemen. Memes spread. Someone edits the robbery footage with upbeat music. Inside police headquarters, no one is smiling. The pressure is immediate and brutal. The Minister of Security demands answers. The mayor demands arrests. The public prosecutor demands names. Internal Affairs demands explanations. Everyone wants to know how a group of men could outthink the entire security apparatus of the city. The first theory is inside help. They interrogate bank employees, background checks, financial records, phone logs. Nothing connects. No suspicious transfers, no unusual behavior. The vault alarm system wasn't disabled from inside. It wasn't touched at all. Then they turn outward. Surveillance cameras, traffic cameras, sewage maps. They reconstruct the tunnel routes inch by inch. They bring in engineers, urban planners, retired sanitation workers. That's when the fear sets in. The tunnel wasn't improvised. It followed old infrastructure paths that no longer appear on modern maps. Lines abandoned decades earlier. Only someone with deep knowledge or obsessive research could have planned it. Detectives begin to work backward. Who could have done this? Who had the patience? Who had the discipline? They release sketches based on witness descriptions. Average height, calm demeanor, no visible tattoos, no strong accents, ordinary faces. Faces that disappear into crowds. Days pass, then weeks. No arrests. The media tone changes. What was once playful becomes mocking. Editorials tear into the police. Late-night hosts run jokes about pizza deliveries. Every failed press conference makes the department look smaller. Internally, tensions rise. Officers accuse leadership. Leadership accuses negotiators. Negotiators accuse protocol. No one wants to admit the truth. They were never chasing the robbers. They were being managed by them. By February 2006, the authorities were close, but they weren't there yet. They had names, vague leads, and fragments of conversations. But the breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. Not a tip from a forensic lab, not a hidden camera, not a calculated mistake in the tunnel. It came from a woman, Alicia Dulio. She had been married to one of the robbers, Beto de la Torre. She had watched for months as he disappeared for hours at a time, as he counted stacks of cash in the living room, hiding money behind walls, under floorboards, inside water heaters. She knew something was coming, but she didn't know how much or what exactly. And then she found out the truth in a way no one could ignore. Text messages, phone calls, a pattern that couldn't be ignored. Beto wasn't just planning to stay on the run, he was leaving her. He had a girlfriend, 23 years old, someone he met at a nightclub, someone who had no idea about the months of preparation, the tunnels, the fake guns, the meticulous rehearsals. Alicia's world fractured in that instant. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her family, and her husband's loyalty collapsed. The money, the adventure, the stories she had half believed, they became meaningless next to the betrayal she felt in her own home. She followed him. She confronted him at the girlfriend's apartment, screaming, crying. The police arrived because the neighbors called, thinking it was just a domestic fight. But for Alicia, the stakes were higher than anyone could see. She wasn't just angry. She knew where the money came from. She knew who he was working with. She knew the truth about Banco Rio. 3 days later, she walked into federal police headquarters and told them everything. Names, details, plans, tunnel entrances, how the hostages had been managed, how the pizzas bought time, even the toy guns. She didn't know everything. Araujo and Bolster's identities remained partially hidden, but she knew enough to put the investigation on the fast track. And just like that, the entire operation that had humiliated an entire police force in front of the nation started to crumble. March 7th, 2006, pre-dawn raids. At 4:47 a.m., Beto is found asleep in his home, money stacked around him, almost $1 million in cash. He doesn't resist, he barely blinks. His life, which seemed untouchable just weeks before, is over in a moment. 4 minutes later, Vitet is arrested at his mother's house. 4 minutes after that, Doc surrenders peacefully in his apartment. The rest of the men, including Araujo and Bolster, are taken within hours. The authorities find evidence, yes, but not all of it. The $19 million? Most of it remains missing. Only the partial sums hidden in Beto's house are recovered. The rest is gone, buried, spent, invested. No one knows, and it would stay that way. The public reaction is instantaneous. Shock, disbelief, then outrage, then sympathy. Polls show 68% of Argentines wanted them to remain free. Lawyers volunteered to defend them pro bono. Crowds gather outside courthouses, chanting support. Even hostages speak in their favor, saying they were treated politely, even kindly. Many refused to testify. How could they, after being fed pizza, guided safely into a basement, and not harmed once? The trial becomes another performance. Araujo treats it like theater. He describes the heist as a piece of art, a critique of a system that stole billions from ordinary people in 2001. Bolster explains tunnel engineering with the precision of a professor. Vitet maintains a military bearing throughout. The prosecution has difficulty. They can prove the plan existed. They can prove the robbery happened, but they can't prove the exact amounts stolen. Safe deposit boxes have no official registry. Owners can't document losses without implicating themselves in tax evasion. The system that made this robbery possible is also the system that makes it impossible to measure. Sentences are handed down, 9 to 15 years. The press covers every moment. The myth persists. Behind the headlines, however, the real damage isn't the prison sentences. It's what the robbery did to its own team. Beto lost his marriage. Alicia's betrayal had stripped him of trust. A girlfriend fled, scared of involvement. Friendships within the crew grew tense. Suspicion lingered in every conversation, every handshake. Money couldn't repair it. Planning couldn't repair it. The most meticulously executed heist in history had one weak point: human nature. And yet, even as they served time, the legend of Banco Rio only grew. By 2020, every member had been released. Araujo wrote a book, sold movie rights, lectured at universities about strategy, planning, and the art of perception. Bolster quietly returned to engineering projects. His role in the robbery something he rarely discusses. Vitet faded from the public eye. Beto tried to rebuild a life, but the scars of betrayal lingered. The money? Still missing. $17 million that no one can trace. Some believe it's buried. Some that it was invested, quietly growing interest while its owners served prison time. Some think it was spent in a calculated, invisible way. What remains is the story. It's taught as an example of audacity, a lesson in planning, a warning in overconfidence. A reminder that the smallest human flaw, a lie, an affair, a betrayal, can destroy the most flawless plan. Banco Rio was more than a heist. It was a demonstration. The police, 100 strong, were outsmarted not with weapons, but with discipline, misdirection, and timing. Perception had beaten reality. Attention had beaten force. And yet, one woman, angry, hurt, betrayed, achieved what 300 armed officers could not. Alicia Dulio forced the downfall of men who had thought themselves untouchable. She revealed the human cost beneath the legend. She proved that the perfect crime can still be undone by the imperfections of those who commit it.